We're talking about intersection between finance, NGOs, civil society, public sector, private sector. And there's a frankness about actually creating honesty when you're doing evaluation. How do we learn together and change behavior about what works, what doesn't, what's not working, and what failure means?
It's a great question, and it actually has been a conundrum to me that we have this double standard between the way capitalism functions and the way the NGO and government section is supposed to provide. Capitalism is based on failure. The mantra of capitalism is fail often and fail fast. And we know that that's going to happen. But the failure is not an ultimate failure if you've learned from it, if you figure out something to do differently and you adjust accordingly. So we actually expect there to be a substantial failure. You know, there's some enormous number, like 60,000 new products introduced in the American marketplace every year. Only 600 of them make it. We know that there are millions of small businesses formed every year, and only 10% of them make it a year, and only 10% of those make it 5 years. So capitalism thrives on people trying stuff out and failing. You move to the nonprofit sector, nothing's supposed to fail. It's all supposed to work right out of the box. Of course, failure is totally unacceptable in government, despite the massive failures of almost everything government does, but it gets politicized. And so it comes back to the learning question that you were talking about, is the failure is really the failure to know how to make sense of what's going on, to figure out that when you got a glue that didn't glue, what else might be done with it. The good news is that there are some movements afoot in shifting behavior around learning, the fail forward movement, fail fests, the recognition that we need to learn from failure, and that together funders and change agents need to be able to say, this is what we thought was going to happen. It didn't work out, and to recognize not only when the action didn't work, but when the very theory didn't work. I just am back from a Sustainability Institute and conference in Phoenix, Arizona. The West part of the United States was settled on the basis of the theory that that rain follows the plow. If you go out and plant, it will rain, and the desert won't be the desert anymore. Wallace Stevens, in his great book, The 100th Meridian, talks about that propelled, that false theory propelled Western settlement. And so it's not only that the individual actions were wrong, but the overall framing of it was wrong. And I think that part of the theory of change issue here about learning is learning, coming to the realization that projects don't lead to transformation. And we're still pretty much stuck in a project mentality with the way things are funded, the way they're planned, the way they're implemented, and the way they're evaluated. Bound off issues, attack them narrowly with clear, specific, and measurable outcomes on a logic model. That's what we've learned to do. It's a way of thinking. And yet, we also know that that's not how you change systems, and it's not how you get to transformation. What's on the other side of that, we have to learn together, because it really amounts to a different way of doing business, a different set of relationships, and a different set of ways of monitoring how well things are happening.